Welcome to another episode of the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. I'm Steve Casillo. We appreciate you being here today. Today, as we do every Friday, we bring in our financial philosopher. That would be Phillip Washington Jr. He is the Chief Investment Officer with Stonehill Wealth Management. Today, we are talking about how do interest rates affect my investments? Do they or do they not? Check it out. Here's another 10-minute nugget of information. Now, you mentioned on your podcast, Wealth Building Made Simple, you teased the fact that Tuesday is Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras. You take the day off. What does Phillip Washington Jr. traditionally do on Fat Tuesday?
Take the day off, and we find a place to go have some sidecars and nice food, and for lunch, and then in the evening we go out and do the same thing.
Yeah.
Probably will be in, at a spot in the neighborhood.
Little gumbo, a little jambalaya.
You know what?
Wearing beads and a mask.
We might actually make some gumbo.
There you go.
Yeah, we definitely gonna get it at the restaurant we go to, but
okay.
Might make some at home too.
Today we are talking about how do interest rates affect my investments, and I gave this actually a subtitle. See if you like this. How to align with Miss Market.
I like that. It's a great one.
So this came, and to the listeners, Phillip records his podcast right here in the studio, and then we take that information from that podcast and we run it into the Consumer Advice Series. So I kind of know what he's going to talk about, but and you gave the name a gender, or you gave the market a gender, a miss. And so, first of all, why?
Yeah, so Warren Buffett, who's an amazing teacher of investments, one of my early teachers of investments, I didn't make it up. He had Mr. Market, and so I figured, well, since that was the 1900s, like my kids say, back in the 1900s, right? And we used males to describe concepts. I was like, well, now it's 2000s, we can use Miss Market.
Yeah.
Right. So it just that was the reason.
All right. Let's tee it up. How do interest rates affect my investments?
So the simple version is when we talk about interest rates, we're talking about Miss Market's interest in saving, and basically like a savings account. I'm gonna keep it super simple on this one. And the other, so, and everything has like a polarization, right? So think of like on one end of a seesaw, Miss Market's interest in saving an interest rate in savings account, and on the other end of the seesaw is Miss Market wanting to save in what I call investment grade assets, or assets that support the economy. So real estate, stocks, crypto, all those things. And so like over the long term, there's balance of savings going consistently into assets to finance the economy, but in the short term, they kind of wobble based on what's going on with short-term interest rates.
Okay.
And so, if Miss Market is more interested in saving than she is investing over the long term, then interest rates go up, because that means there's a bigger demand, or you have a bunch of market participants looking for finite dollars, and so the bidding war comes, which pushes up interest rates, because everybody wants dollars, and so the banks are saying, hey, we'll pay more interest to get more dollars, because because the system wants more dollars. Right.
And you had mentioned on your podcast about the roller coaster effect, that when you get into an investment early, it may have the ups and downs until it levels off or it balances.
Yep. We talked about the maturing process of the market. So I'll walk you through like a market cycle to talk about the maturing process of a market, which there's like long-term forever maturing cycle. There's like long-term 100-year maturity cycles. There's 50-year maturity cycles, and there's like the normal business life cycle, which is 5 to 10 years, right? So I'm going to talk about I'm gonna walk through like 2000 and walk you through Miss Market's relationship to interest rates and investment grade assets to make it make sense. And so like 2000 was the end of the .com boom, where a lot of dollars, a lot of dollars were lost in a speculative bubble, and so there became a shortage of dollars. So everybody scrambled to grab dollars, which caused interest rates to rise. But when that happens, the government is competing. The government has bills, and so when short-term interest rates rise, that affects their ability to pay their bills in the short term, because most businesses and governments pay on a buy now, pay later scheme, which means there's gaps in cash needed to pay bills in the short term. And so the government can't compete with the private market, so they had to send in the central banker, the Federal Reserve, to say, hey, lower interest rates so that we can borrow and pay our bills, right? So that's why you saw after the .com crash, interest rates began to go down, over time. And so what this ended up doing is, once Miss Market realizes that she's not earning any interest on her savings, it pushes her to the other end of the seesaw, over to investment assets, investment grade assets. And so then we had that created the real estate boom, right? And so then what ends up happening is, in the maturity process, right, your emotions are swinging. So it went from being way too conservative after the .com crash and everybody's going after cash, to way too aggressive in the real estate, and then that blew up, and then people realized, oh, shortage of dollars again, and then they ran back to cash, right? In 2008 crash, right? And then government stepped in, helped rates stop going up because they couldn't borrow money, push rates down. This market said, all right, I'm not getting paid on savings again, ran back up. And over the last decade or so, we had the blow up of the China economy in 2014, 15. That was a bubble. Oil and gas also bubbled around the same time. We had, the biotech boom, right? We had the crypto boom. And so we keep having bubbles because the government keeps artificially lowering the interest rate, which pushes Miss Market out the risk curve over time. And so interest rates, have a big effect on the psychology of the market.
Okay. So interest rates do have an effect on investments. Is there a way that the consumer out there can protect themselves as rates go up or as rates go down? Yep.
So the same way that we do, I like to use the Miss Market analogy because it humanizes it and makes it less of this amorphic thing. And so the same way that we work with in real life with humans, like if we're around somebody who we love, who's depressed, right? The best thing we can do is have faith in them. We don't give into their depression. We don't beat them up when they're down, right? We build them up by having faith in who we know them to truly be. How that applies to the market is, when the market is depressed and you have a understanding of what the future's gonna be, right? Meaning, first thing, the future of humans is undefeated. We always evolve out of crises, right? But then the second thing is, what does the future likely look like 10 years from now? Well, look at the 20 and 30-year-olds. What are they like? Buy that stuff, right? And so when the market is depressed, you have faith by buying the stuff that corresponds with where the future is going. And then when Miss Market gets upset because she's being manipulated by artificially low rates, and she goes out to assets that are promising the biggest bag, right? She goes way too far on the spectrum, out of balance, where then you become the voice of reason, right? So when your friend is wilding out too much, right, having too much fun, then you got to be the voice of reason, and you say, all right, rein it in some, right? And what that looks like is, when everybody wants to invest their entire portfolio in crypto in 2017 because it's the get rich quick scheme, you say, I'm gonna stay balanced and diversified. I'm gonna own some, but I'm not gonna make a big bet on something that is
speculative at that time.
Right? Yeah. So you maintain a balanced approach. That's how you do it. Because just like in real life, the most mature person in the room or an organization becomes the leader. And so when you lead the market or get ahead of the market will eventually be attracted to you. It's because the market over time matures. As a collective participant, right? You can participate, or you can individually participate and say, I'm not going to go with this group think. I'm going to mature past the group. I'm going to wait for the group to catch up, And that's how you make money in a market, by being the most mature.
Say that. Okay, so the quote again is, the most mature person in the room is the leader.
I think that's what I said. You know, I just be saying things, Steve.
Oh, now we're going to have to go back and play that. I don't know. I pulled a quote from you last week.
Yeah,
and
I actually, I'm glad you did, because I used that again on a reel.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt good, whatever I said. I just don't remember the exact wording.
You'd mentioned the short and slightly longer ways also to protect, of having a cash cushion, having a list of your 5-year expenses, your 10-year investment horizon. These are pretty practical tips for consumers.
I'll list them real quick. Is have enough short-term cash for emergencies. Think about things you need cash for in the next 3 to 5 years. Maybe it's a wedding, down payment on a home, start a business. Have the cash for that, regardless of interest rates, because it gives you a stable foundation. And then have at least a 10-year investment horizon for your investments. And that, for the most part, will give you a balanced approach from an investment standpoint. You got cash cushion, but you're investing for the long term, and so you're good.
Balance. Like yoga for finances.
I like that.
Yeah.
Look, that's a quote right there. Yoga for finances.
If someone wanted to reach out to Phillip Washington Jr. to maybe do a little yoga with their finances, how can they reach out to you?
StonehillWealthManagement.com. StonehillWealthManagement.com.
That's Phillip Washington Jr. We do this every Friday, and what do they say? Laiton Rosé Roulé.
My wife is better at them.
Let the good times roll.
Yeah, absolutely. That thing.
Have a good time on Tuesday, and we'll do this again next week.
See you next week. Thanks.
We appreciate you listening to the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. By the way, if you own a business and you are interested in being a part of the Consumer Advice Series, if you have the knowledge to give information in 10-minute increments to the consumers, shoot me an email to info@aboutmansfield.com. Again, that is info@aboutmansfield.com. We'll tell you how we can get you all set up. Appreciate it. We do it again next week right here on the podcast.